More. You can't. There's no way you can even be comfortable in.
And mind you, they are not well fed. And they still carry this cross.
Bro, you can't even. There's no way you can be comfortable in this. Damn.
Yeah, the cross is heavy.
Here is the dungeon where the unsold slaves were kept till another market day. And the market day, every Friday that I've said before. We are not using this first place here inside the dungeon as an example of what has happened there. The leftover may be any number, they'll be here till another 5 days. These are the plantation slaves. The 2 slaves here, they are the plantation slaves. The iron will be on their neck while they were working on the plantation.
According to the oral history in Badagry, we were told that children we are giving out as Esra, Fisi, Jara. And that will tell you that we sold ourselves into slavery. Though there are always 2 sides of coins. Now, Africa of then, we have a very large colony that you cannot penetrate. We have the Oyo Empire, the Choto Alphabet, we have the Shaka Zulu, we have the Ashanti that you cannot go through them because they have a warrior. Okay. Now, anywhere the European got to, if they realize that these people, they are not well organized, what they did, at a gunpoint, they invaded the place, they enslaved the people. I think that what happened in Oshogun in Shen, where Bishop Samuel Ajayi Crowther was captured as a slave. If I'm a slave, my master want to punish or torture me at the presence of other slave. Now, as you can see, it's not the size, my hand cannot go through this. But if I'm a slave, my master want to punish, they have to break the bone. Okay. After breaking the bone, they forcefully bring it down here. This knot, they'll lose the knot, they'll ask him to stand on the platform of this height. Now, there's a tall tree, we call it gallows. They'll drill it, then they fix it inside, they'll return the knot back so that it will be very strong. So suddenly, they will drill the platform where he or she standing. Now, I want you guys to just imagine all your body weight on this small hand be suspended on here.
Damn.
And while doing this, they let other enslaved Africans stay aside to watch.
Between the 1500s and the late 1800s, Badagry was one of the main routes where millions of Africans were captured, sold, and shipped across the Atlantic to unknown land. Badagry played a major role in the transatlantic slave trade, acting as the market and point of no return for many enslaved Africans, mostly captured around present-day southwest of Nigeria. This part that we are walking right now is the same part that the slaves used to walk. So if this was to be 1500 to 1800, we as black men or African men crossing here, it's either we are going to be the slavers or we are the slaves. So if I was a slave, if this was in the 1500 and 1800, I'll probably have a big chain on my neck right now and my hands tied, and I'll be walking this part. This is the part to the point of no return.
And you are welcome to Badagry Slave Market International Museum. My name is Mr. Shadule Kokoyemi. I will be going to take you around the exhibition. So you are welcome to Badagry once again.
Yeah.
And you are welcome to Badagry Slave Market. The market was established in the year 1502. 1502. And 300 slaves were being sold out every market day in Badagry. And the market day is every 5 days. 300 slaves were being sold here every 5 days. If I do the calculation, 300 times 4, 1,002 per month, 1,002 times 12 per year, 14,400. That's what the average of what they sold here. So more than that, but that's the average of what they sold here every year. And here is a shrine called Vlekete Shrine. Vlekete Shrine. It's an aquatic deity. Aquatic is what? Water. Deity is what? All these are also gods. It's an aquatic deity. The belief is the goddess of wings, ocean, and prosperity. So before they embark on a journey to go and sell their slaves, they perform some rituals there and sacrifice for a safe journey on the water, so that the wind will not blow the slave inside the water, and so that the ocean will not sink the slave. They use all these our gin, kola nut to perform those sacrifices here. And there's no how that they would not have used human being before. Later, they turn into gin and kola nut. So the next place that we are going to now is the trial of Richard Lander. The trial of Richard Lander.
Let's go.
So here is the trial of Richard Lander. The trial of Richard Lander. Hugh Clepperton and Richard Lander came to Badagry in the year 1825. So Richard Lander recruited Badagry same year when he was coming from Katunga, Old Oyo. We called Oyo at that time Katunga. The Portuguese cannot call the Richard Lander, the British one cannot call Oyo, so he called Oyo Katunga. So the Portuguese that were already in Badagry at that time reported Richard Lander that he came to Badagry to power spy because British abolished their own slavery in 1807 before 1825. And this place is like a customary court where they try people. Maybe you are guilty or you are not guilty. So it was tried in front of the king of Badagry called Mewu, Akwan of Badagry at that time. And here we have the two chiefs in Badagry, Chief Wawu and Chief Mobee. Chief Wawu and Chief Mobee. And here we have the chief priest to take a concussion inside the calabash to prove maybe he's guilty or not. Assuming he's guilty, when he takes concussion, he will do what? He will die instantly. But because he's coming to Badagry to explore Badagry and to make sure slavery must be abolished in Badagry, not to come and spy, he take the concussion and he survived the trial. Nothing happens to him. Dungeon.
Man,
Let's go to dungeon
you okay?
to see where our forefathers
What's your work?
were kept for another 5 days.
Wow. Okay.
Here is the dungeon where the unsold slaves were kept till another market day. And the market day is every Friday that I've said before. We are not using this first place here inside the dungeon as an example of what has happened then. The leftover may be any number, they'll be here till another 5 days. These are the plantation slaves. The two slaves here, they are the plantation slaves. The iron will be on their neck while they will be working on the plantation. So that whenever they want to escape from the plantation, the edge of the iron will be touching the tree for them not to escape from the plantation and for them not to escape from the dungeon here. If you want to pass through this door here with this iron, I know it will not be easy for you to pass through this door with this iron. They are the plantation slaves. And this is a stubborn slave. Some actually call it a stubborn slave, but I call it a brave slave. It's not easy to use iron on the head of the slave. The iron will tighten the head of the slaves and blood will start coming out. And you expect the slaves to be calm inside the dungeon, not to cause any revolt or cause any issue. Is it possible? It's not possible. He's a brave slave. They know he can do anything for him to be what? Freed inside the dungeon. And this is an old slave. It's an old slave. I see he's very old. He's not having chain on the two ends. He's not having chain on the 2 legs. They know it's his number. He can die anytime. But if he's lucky, the lucky is what? 10% out of 100. If he's lucky, the what? Sold out. The 90% that remains is what? I mean, he will die inside the dungeon. He's an old slave. So they get here, they do all sorts of things inside the dungeon, and this place is deeper than this. They sample it, plaster it, and put sand on it for the tongues to have access. Still goes down. They do all sorts of things inside the dungeon, and they eat once in a day. They eat what they see. They don't say anything to eat. They eat their food, as I've said before, and drink their urine.
One of the most powerful slave merchants in Badagry was Seriki Williams Abass. Once a young man, captured and taken to Brazil, he returned to Badagry and became a dominant figure in the slave trade. Within his compound, men, women, and children were held in barracoons, waiting for ships that would carry them across the Atlantic and never to return. Abass' story is complex. A former slave who became a trader of his own people. His life reflects the brutal realities of the era.
The corridor of slave trade in the year 16th century to 18th century. Also, you're welcome to this compound called Brazilian Barracoon. But before I go further, my name is Adekunle. I'm the staff of National Museum. I was posted here as a curator, tour guide as well. So, you are welcome to this compound, as I said earlier on, called Brazilian Barracoon. And Barracoon means slave cell, in short. Slave storehouse, where they store slaves in these days are waiting the arrival of the slave master to come and buy them and take them away. So the man you are seeing the picture over there was the rightful owner of this compound. He built this compound. He's the owner of this compound. But mind you, he himself was once a slave. At the very tender age of 6, this man was captured in his own hometown called Gaurime in Ogun State. And he was sold into slavery. Slave doesn't have name, they bear their master's name. So this man needs to bear his master's name. The first master who bought him is called Abass. Abass bought him and took him to Daume, then the now called Benin Republic. And in Benin, Abass made him domestic slave, meaning he worked at home with the master, because we have two categories of slaves. We have the freed one and we have the domestic slaves. This man was made domestic slave, and also this man is fortunate. He is not castrated. They didn't castrate him because they used to castrate any domestic slave. So this man is not castrated. And later, it now resold him to another man called Williams, the Brazilian, the white man. Anytime he come around, we always saw the gentle boy, his master. Then he demanded to buy him from Mr. Abass. Mr. Abass now resold him to Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams bought him and took him to Brazil. So he himself, Mr. Williams, still made him domestic slave, meaning he worked at home with the master. And in Brazil, when Mr. Williams sent him to school, he taught him how to read and write. He taught him the slave trade business. After many years, they stayed with Mr. Williams and lived with him. Mr. Williams called him one day. Mr. Man, come. I want to give you your freedom, but on one condition. What is the condition? The condition is that he will free him, we send him back to his country, Nigeria. He will be doing the wrong rights, his master something to be doing here. Going from interland to interland, from village to village, from town to town, from state to state, in doing what? In search of slaves. He accepted and he was sent back to Nigeria. When he came down, first based in Lagos Island, where he acquired many properties before he now come down to Badagry and bought this land. He bought this land and built this compound of 40 slave cells with the help of his master. 40 slave cells in this compound. And each of the cells, they kept 40 slaves in each of the cells. 40 slaves in each of the cells. That the total number of slaves kept in this compound to be 1,600 slaves were kept in this compound and lived the shore of this country, who just port outside, across the lagoon, called Lagos Port No Lagoon, Badagry River, just to the island called Badagry Island, from there to point of no return. Then from point of no return to unknown destination, because still they don't know where they are taking them to. So that the slave masters don't know where they are taking the slaves to. Now, because of the kind of currency we spend and use in those days that doesn't have value in international market, that's why the European master come about what we call bargaining power, trade by barter, exchange of goods with goods, exchange of property with property. That's how they come about bringing their own products to Africa in exchange of slaves, like umbrella, canoe gun, gin, wine, the long or the short one, the mirror, the beads, ceramic bowl, bingo. Now let me tell you the price now. For an umbrella, it goes for 40 slaves. 40 human beings for one umbrella. A bottle of gin, 10 slaves. A bottle of wine, 10 slaves. Long cannon gun, 100. The short one, 40. Mirror and the bead, depend on how you bargain, but highest is 10. Ceramic bowl is for 10 slaves. Then on 40 slaves. Now the kettle and brass dish was a gift given to him after he accepted Islamic faith, and was Toban, Seriki Muslim of Badagry Kingdom, meaning here the Muslim society in Badagry Kingdom is here.
So what's the name?
Watachild.
Watachild.
Yeah, Omumi. Yeah.
Wow. You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
These chapels and chairs I'm holding, I used to call it an idol.
What?
Idol.
Idol. Oh.
You know the reason why I used to call the chain an idol?
No.
This chain, these chapels and chains, they are all over 500 years.
Wow.
And these are original chapels and chains that were used on the slave Africans.
So like the original ones they were used.
Later, I'm still going to bring it down. You feel the weight, and you're going to weigh it on your neck, and you feel how heavy it is.
Wow.
We call it neck collar chain. And the chains used to come up with some torture equipment that I will be introducing to you later. But let me start this way. The family that own these museums, we call it the Mobee family.
Okay.
The family derived their name from Kola North. It was their forefather whose name was Modogun.
Okay.
Modogun means lion stalk. You know, the way lion, if you used to watch animal documentary, those cats, if they want to catch a prey, there's a way they move.
Yeah.
You know, that movement
Yeah.
is called stalk. Now, the man called Modogun used to offer the European that used to buy slave from him, like Oyibo Remi and Mobee. And the villagers started calling the man Mobee, and the name went viral. And today, the family have no option. They just have to adopt the name as their real name and surname. And we call it the Mobee's family. And the one ruling this quarter, because Badagry has 8 quarters. Where you are, it's not a Boycon quarter. And that's a picture of the current Mobee or Badagry kingdom. Now, let me start with this. The slave trade, the first slave trade began by the Arabs.
Okay.
Egypt, Tunisia, Morocco, Libya, you see today, were owned by us. We call them the Kush, the Nubia, the Kermit. And the ancient name for Africa is called Al-Kebulan, which means Garden of Eden, where all human beings originated from. And I used to tell people that a lot of people don't even know that Africa had been existing for about over 50,000 years before the Europeans came through our genes. So we created them. And Africa is never a poor continent. And Africa is never inferior. We are superior. Now, this one that only has 3 functions. We call it branding iron. Now, they put this inside the fire. If I'm Omomi slave, my name should be Omomi. Because they have no name, they put inside the fire to write Omomi on my checks or at my back. We call it branding. Because the slave kept in the cell were owned by different masters. They call the cell Barracoon. Barracoon is a Spanish word meaning cell, dungeon, where the enslaved were being kept, were owned by different masters. For identification, you have to brand them with red hot. Then, secondly, there's some slaves called fugitives. Who are the fugitives? Those are the runaway slaves. Today you run, tomorrow the master will bring the slave, they put his toe. The way I'm putting it, you know, our toe has a tongue.
Yes.
That in between the big tongue from the leg, they'll fix this. Then they'll let other enslaved Africans stay aside to what suddenly they will hammer it down on the toes of the runaway slave, or they use an axe or a cutlass, they chop off one of his toes of the enslaved African. Now, if you are watching a movie titled The Road by Alexander Kunta Kinte, similar time to the guy in the movie. Now, and it's a true life story as well. Then, secondly, thirdly, rather, they were not allowed to communicate. Food and water is once in a day. And the main reason why they were not well fed, Europeans believe that if these black people with their physique, even if we give them too much of food, they have power to revolt against their masters. Okay? So for that reason, they either made this thing called iron muzzle, M-U-Z-Z-L-E, to cover up their mouth. But if they don't want to use this, the one that it was, they put this inside the fire. And the main reason why they have to put it inside the fire, so it's easy to penetrate, they draw the upper lip, they perforate. They put another hole down here again. Now, after piercing the upper and lower lips of the enslaved Africans, Europeans will never ever do the mistake by fixing padlock directly on their lip for some reason, because they believe that if they should put padlock directly, they can use left or right side of the lips to communicate or zip. So we call this mouth clips. So, or mouth guard. They just have to draw the tool very well before fixing the padlock on their lips so that they will not be able to communicate. Now, I used to tell people that those enslaved Africans were so intelligent, because if they don't communicate, the little freedom that we have today might not be possible, because they must communicate. Now, where they live is called quarter, cabin, where they live. Now, in the cool of the evening, while they were not doing anything, they gather themselves around. They use body language. We call it patting, juba, or humble to communicate. Like,
you
know, they were using to call the women braid their hair. We call it cornrow. So their masters were so amazed. How many these people come? They don't understand that they are using those body language to pass message to each other. Now, this one is called children jail, and this is another one for the children. Now, they put this one is for the leg of the two children that they put, come over, like They put two legs of children together this way, then they will lock two of them together, or rather, they tie their hands together, two children like this. They tie their hands together, they lock with padlock and put them aside so that they won't disturb their parents while working on the farm or on the plantation. Now, according to the oral history in Badagry, we were told that children we are giving out as Esra, Fisi, Jara. And that will tell you that we sold ourselves into slavery, though there are always two sides of coins. Now, Africa of then, we have a very large colony that you cannot penetrate. We have the Oyo Empire, the Choto, we have the Shaka Zulu, we have the Ashanti that you cannot go through them because they have a warrior. Okay. Now, anywhere the European got to, if they realize that these people they are not well organized, what they did at a gunpoint, they invaded the place, they enslaved the people. I think that what happened in Oshogun in Shen, where Bishop Samuel Ajayi Crowther was captured as a slave. Now, anywhere they get to, if they realize these people are okay, they have warrior, what they will now do? European, because the kind of money we spent back then, in the olden days, we spent tobacco, Manila, I think, yes, tobacco, Manila, cowrie shell, and Yala salt. I think there's a local government in Kosovo called Yala, they spend salt. So when they came, Europeans said they can't do business with them with this kind of money, that they should do trade by barter. That's why they have to use some item in exchange for our brother and sister. Now, as I was saying, so anywhere they go to, if they say they are well okay, they will now use all like a bottle of whiskey for 10 human beings, one umbrella for 40, the long cannon gun, 100, the smaller and 40 slave in exchange of their people. Now, this is another crazy one. We call it torture ring. Now, you can see the knots are melted because of the age. It's over 500 years. Now, then the company that produces this chain is at 111 and 15 at Baltimore in Birmingham, London, named Hayat and Company, H-A-I-T-T and Company that produces the neck collar chain that they wore on the neck of the slave Africa. Now, if I'm a slave, my master want to punish or torture me at the presence of the other slave. Now, as you can see, it's not the size, my hand cannot go through this. But if I'm a slave, my master want to punish, they have to break the bone. Okay. After breaking the bone, they forcefully bring it down here. This knot, they'll lose the knot, they'll ask him to stand on the platform of this height. Now, there's a tall tree, we call it gallows. They'll drill it, then they fix it inside, they'll return the knot back so that it will be very strong. So suddenly, they will drill the platform where he or she was standing. Now, I want you guys to just imagine all your body weight on this small hand be suspended on air.
Yeah.
And while doing this, they let other enslaved Africans stay aside to watch. What they're trying to achieve, they're trying to instill fear into them. If you do this, this is what will happen to you. And eventually, if they die, there's no kill because they are being returned to property of their master. Now, let me bring the chain down. I want you to feel the weight of the chain. Or you want to put it, maybe put it on. Now come this way. Now, you can see this how they fix it. Then their hand, leave your hand. Their hand at the back. Can you feel the heaviness of this? And they wore this chain under discussion. I should free you, right?
I beg. This thing is touching.
Yes. This one will be itching your back. It will be hurting you. Now, they wore this under discussion, son. Because of the heaviness of the chain, it used to absorb the sun. I could
not even, I could not even stand. Like, the moment you just put it on me, like, I could not.
You can see how heavy it is. So, after removing the chain,
if you do like this, if you do like this, you feel the pain.
Do you know that
then if you do like this,
time goes by, you usually deform them entirely after removing the chain because the chain will stay long on their neck.
You can't, there's no way you can even be comfortable in this.
And mind you, they are not well fed. And they still carry this cross.
Bro, you can't even, there's no way you can be comfortable in this. Damn.
Yeah, the cross is heavy.
Wow.
Now, I think let's go this way. Yeah, the man buried here, his name is Chief Sumbo Mobee.
Okay.
He died October 16, 1893. And he got to a level, I think the British abolished in their treaty 1803. So after the abolition of the slave trade in their territory, they started campaigning against that. All that countries should abolish trade. But this man is served with the British because of all the ice ships in Badagry then. So he's one of them that served with the British. That's March 1852 to sign the treaty for the abolition of the trade right here in Badagry. Now, this local music instrument got nothing to do with slavery at all. Royal family normally use it. We call it ajogon that were used to entertain themselves. Like the women will beat this go like. Now, according to the reading, like 10 to 15 women will be holding this, and they'll be bringing it up and down, and they'll be singing according to the reading. Now, this one is called the castrated slave. Why do they castrate the men? For them not to have a sexual intercourse with their master's wife or daughter, because majority of them were used as a bodyguard or domain. They work directly in their master, so they have to castrate them. But along the line, majority of them die because they are not well being kept. And this is the water called slave actuation well. Once you call this water now to that peninsula, you're still going to walk down like a 15 to 20 meters of the beach. At the interval of the journey, there's a well. Who does this well? The well was done by the African chiefs that were sending their people into slavery. Why? We call the slave ship a cargo ship. A cargo ship could take like 200, 300, 500 slaves at a go. But the crew, they were taking them away. They are no more than 25 to 30 people. So while taking them away, most of the time, if they spotted the land or they have any opportunity, they utilize it. They kill all the crew on board, but they will not touch the sailor. Why? Because they cannot navigate. They will ask the sailor to sail to any available land. They will not occupy. I think that's what happened in Guadeloupe, Bahama, Haiti, when the slaves spotted the land. Now, the African ship came up with that idea. They dug the well and they put champ into it. And they started giving their own people to drink. Once they consume the water, we are told that they will lose their memory. But in my own research, I don't think that water is meant for them to lose their memory. Why? Because you are enslaving them to go and use them to work. So somebody without the memory cannot be able to function properly. So I think the essence of water is just to subdue and calm them down for 3 to 4 months, so that when they get to Europe, they regain their memories back. But some say it's still effective, some say it's not, but we don't know how true this is. Now, if you are watching Mobee, type Django Unchained. Any slave that try to escape, there's some well-trained dog, we call them killer's dog. They will do their trained after them, and the dog will devour them to bone. And any slave that refuse to accept the master's religion or name will be struck to death. As I said, like me, I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Muslim. I believe in Africa's spirituality. Now, the reason why I can never be a Christian is simply because the Christian, they enslaved, we call them the Crusader. The Crusader, they killed majority of Africa and they forced those regions onto them, and the Bible came through the water. Because the name of the first ship is meaning Jesus of Lubeck, or good ship Jesus, owned by King Henry VIII of England. Queen Elizabeth I rented to one J. Hawking, and they said taking we African away as a slave. I can never be a Christian. Then in the 7th century, the Arab that invaded Egypt, they too, we call it trans-Saharan slave trade. They slaughter our people. We call them the jihadis. They gave them Islam. That's why I can never follow those religions that killed my forefather or my forebear. Now, this is another touching story. Anytime I come across this, I used to feel somehow. Why? Because probably because I'm a parent. Now, imagine your loved one, somebody resold your loved one. The master resold the husband of the enslaved woman to another merchant, and they're taking the man away. He might not have access to see his family till he's dead. Sometimes it could be the wives resold or the children. Imagine your lovely children sold and you never see them again. That's a great development. Now, taking Africa across the Atlantic Ocean to Europe, the team is known as the Middle Passage. Now, this is how they used to capture the slaves. This is how they used to raid them. Now, most of the Igbo slaves taken along Calabar, Bonny-Port, they took them to Georgia in US. Now, there's an island named St. Simon in the Badagry where over 75 of the Igbo slaves said over their dead body to be. So what they did, they killed their masters. 75 of them in one accord. They walked into the ocean, they drowned themselves. They called the place Igbo landing up till then. And some people say the people that lives around there say up today, they still hear strange voices that at night, that's tell you that this because the spirits of those enslaved Africa that killed themselves, it should be roaming about. It's not being ascended because the way they died, it's still roaming around. And I used to say, but that's a problem why Africa is not, we are not getting it. Until we say sorry, or until we say sorry to some certain set of people, probably Africa will be back from where she period of travel. And this is another market we call it Vlekete slave market, established 1502. Every market day, 300 enslaved Africans were sold out of this market, and every market is for 5 days.
Wow.
Now, this is the point of no return, which is across the Atlantic Ocean, where you see the slave attrenation well that is to give them to drink. Now, this portrait here, it's not as if this enslaved Africa was covering his face because of bite of shame. Now, what's happened? The Europeans that foreseen that these black people were so strong. If we don't do something, one day they will revolt and take over from us. So at the present, if they commit any crime, like him, they plug out his 2 eyes at the presence of others. Even though the women were pregnant, they remove their womb to serve as an example for others. Or sometimes outside on a stake, they set them off ablaze so that other slaves to be submissive to their master. Now, the last but not the least, the reason why this is where they used to consume water, and they normally mold this outside because you can see the chain, it cannot stand well.
Yes.
So they have to open the ground, they bury it to this is the level here. After burying to this level, they will not fetch water into it. Now, the reason why cup is not employed, they always tie their hand at the back. So 20 of them have to surround this, kneeling down. And the master will say, apes obey, and they go.
Damn.
Another 20 will come, apes obey. The reason they say we are subhuman. When someone say we are subhuman, they say we have no soul, that we are not human, that we are.
Headed to the point of no return. So to better paint the scenario, this part that we are working right now is the same part that the slaves used to walk. So if this was to be 1500 to 1800, we as black men or African men crossing here, it's either we are going to be the slavers or we are the slaves. So if I was a slave, if this was in the 1500 and 1800, I'll probably have a big chain on my neck right now and my hands tied, and I'll be walking this part. This is the part to the point of no return. Bro, give us some history.
Number one, we have a freedom to do to say anything.
Yes.
And along the way, we're still working on the slave route.
Yes.
But then remember, even they put on clothes, no time to talk to each other.
Yes.
They padlock their mouth already.
Yes.
So if you have anything in mind or your heart, we'll be there. No time for gist. So it's an opportunity for us today also to work on the same parts, and we can be able to talk to each other, to put on shoe, put on clothes. We're working free. But then nothing like that.
Yeah.
So where we are working on today, playing, laughing, have gist. Million soul, living soul have passed through here with bitter tears walking through here.
Yeah.
Some die here, while some survived. Many died through stress. Many of them died through hunger. Many of them died through wild animal. Then many of them died through the slave merchants.
Yeah, because this place used to be like a very big forest then.
So once they got here, not going back. The journey to unknown destination started already.
From here.
So when they start the journey, they don't know. Maybe ocean is there or not. So they were just walking in between the forest down to unknown destination. So if anybody, any one of them misbehave, the merchants will bring gun out
and shoot them.
So when they die, no time to bury any one of them. The chain they put on them is very, very important. Slave. So what they need to do is they lose the
chain. The chain was more important
than the slave.
The slave master than the slave.
They called me and you animal. Even till tomorrow.
Yes.
No matter how black man love you, you are still a nothing before them.
Yes.
So you get. So they call us animal. So they prefer the chain because they know when they got to their destination, they were still coming back from that trip.
Yes.
So if they leave any chain behind, that means they want to buy another chain when they come up or when they were coming. So they prefer lost about the slave than the chain. So the chain is very, very important to them. So many of those slaves that die, they throw them into the bush or at the roadside while the survivor move ahead down to unknown destination. Another thing about them is many of those slaves that they take through this path, many of them, they were from western parts of this country. I mean the Yoruba side. The other people, other tribe, sometimes they normally fall into the victim. But people that they normally take through here
I'm from the
most of
southwest.
them are from western part.
Yes.
You know, we have 3 major languages in Nigeria today.
Yes.
And why during the slave era, they also fall into the victim then.
Yeah.
The Hausas, the Yorubas, and the Igbos. Both 3 of them, either they like it or not, one way and another way, they fall into the victim. But Igbo and Yoruba, they have their own route through the ocean.
Yeah.
Why the Hausas have their own through Sahara desert. So sometimes when they were coming back to Badagry is just like a market center. Then when you go, like you went to hunt,
Yeah.
you bring the market or the animal that you kill, you are taking them back to Badagry. So if they were coming down and they come across either the Hausas or the Igbos, they will not like join the market together. They were taking them down, but that is why sometimes the Hausas and Igbos fall into the victim sometimes.
Yes.
But the major people that they used to take through here, they were Yorubas.
Yorubas.
Yes. They were Yorubas.
So is there water at the point of no return now?
Ocean,
Yeah.
ocean.
The ocean there.
The one that you cross this river. Where we're going to?
The ocean.
Ocean. So sometimes father, mother, children, they fall into the victim of slavery. So then also in Yoruba side, they fight against themselves then to get slave. That will be why father, mother, children fall into the victim. They can be inside their house sleeping, and the people that are hunting. When I say hunting, you mean what I'm saying?
Yes, I know what I'm saying.
They get
The slave catchers.
So, see that they have been sleeping, they bust their door. Father want to act like father. They get him down. Mother and the children will cooperate.
Yeah.
So, they can be on the field like for 2-3 months, gathering what they want till when they get the number they want.
Wow.
So after getting the number, the movement started back to where they're coming from. They were taking them down to Badagry. Then they wait for the ship or the slave merchant to come and buy what they were selling. So this place called Spirit Attenuation Well. Spirit Attenuation Well. Actually, I told you when they were coming down, they were still walking down to unknown destination. They don't know maybe ocean is there or not. They were just passing through the big thick forest then. So when they got here, they need to stop them here. Then they rearrange, like regroup them while opening the padlock from their mouth. Then allow them to drink from this well. And you know, some people said they forced them to drink, but I disagree with them. Over there, they told us that before the merchant arrived, those chief or the king behind the trade in Badagry, they normally use them for farming work in Badagry before the merchant arrived. So like, they said they work for 18 hours in the farm every day. Am I correct? Yes. And they normally have 15 minutes rest every day. Out of that 15 minutes, they eat and drink. So if they were eating or drinking and the 15 minutes clock, that means they want to stop whatever they were doing. They were taking them back to the farm to work. That means for that very day, they stopped eating or drinking. When the 18 hours clock, they were taking them back to Barracoon. That means the following day, they are still going back. So if it can be like happen like this, maybe the following day, the merchant arrived for the exchanging. That means they were not going to the farm again. They were taking them down to the slave market where the merchant and the black will negotiate. That means they were not eating or drinking anything that very day. So taking them down there with a heavy chain on the body, walking down on a single file, maybe under the sun or when the rain is falling, they'll be tasty.
Yes.
So when they got here, it's not even need to force any one of them. Willingly, they will drink. And the slave merchant know much about this well, but the slave don't know anything about the well.
Yes.
They think it's ordinary water. Maybe the merchant want to help them. So willingly they drink it, and when they drink it, they say they lost their memory. They cannot be able to flash back where they're coming from or where they're going to. So from here, they will now repadlock their mouth back. Why the journey continue down? I told you earlier that when they got here, some of them died through the slave merchant. You know, when they got here, look around. Someone that captured from Oyo or from Abeokuta, taking them down here. When they look around, it's not like where they're coming from. So they said they prefer die on this island than taking them out. So by that time, when they were trying to drag with the merchant bring gun out so that the only thing that he can use to calm them down is gun. When they start shooting them, other people will cooperate and calm. So by that, the one that they used gun to kill, there were many also. So by the time they got this spirit water, merchant don't used to kill any one of them again. No matter how they drag with him, he will just manage them. Then you know they will be eager to drink water. And once they drink it, that means the journey will be easier for the merchant to move them down to the point of no return. So we're at where called point of no return. Look at these two poles standing. This two pole is the main entrance of the point of no return. So the tunnel is not here then. That tunnel is not here then. But we have the two pole here for a long time ago. I told you the narrow way. When those people are coming, they walk on a single file. So when they got here, no any other way they can go through than to walk through these two pillars standing. These two pillars standing. The tunnel is not here then. So crossing these two pillars, that means they cross the point of no return. At the back of the pillar now, they need to march them down to the seashore, where they will now reassemble them again, like the first one. Then the big ship need to be anchoring on the sea across the wave. And that small boat is here, taking them into the big one. After packing them finished, then the big ship will take up where it's going to. Where are they going to? After crossing the point of no return, the journey continue down to unknown destination. So, through the ocean now, they can go to any part of the world. But along the way, the slave merchant, they used to like having a stopover when they start getting to those white country. So they were having stopover, calling their attention if they want to buy market. So they will be selling them with their own money over there. Why? Going from one place to another place till we get to the last destination.